Rosalyn Wilson, author of the State of Logistics report published annually and released by the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. Rosalyn, what happened in the logistics business last year?
Actually, the logistics business last year was fairly dismal, sort of mirroring the economy. Logistics as a percent of GDP declined to 7.7%. It had been at 9.3% last year at the beginning of the recession in 2008, and then that was a further decline from close to 10% the year before. One of the differences in the decline this year is that it's really not due to us doing a better job. Although there were productivity improvements during the recession, just as a matter of being able to survive, most of that decrease was due to an absolute drop in volume shipped in the industry, and that just had a profound effect on the logistics costs with respect to the rest of the economy.
Less business, less spending on logistics.
That's exactly right. And if you look at the makeup of GDP, although it actually grew slightly in 2009, what you see is that growth was in the services sector and in the government spending sector, but didn't the actual goods sector decline. That translates immediately into a drop in logistics.
Mm-hmm. The drop in logistics spending last year, how steep was that?
It was actually the largest decline we've measured since 1981, larger than any previous recession. The absolute magnitude of the change was that it was down $244 billion. And as I said, that was the single largest decrease by a lot that we've ever had in this model.
Mm-hmm. Why did that cost drop? What were the components that went into that?
There are two major components in the cost of the state of logistics cost model. The first one is inventory carrying costs. And inventory and carrying costs continue to decline because we cut down on inventory, as well as interest rates continue to decline. They weren't at absolute zero, but they were very close. They got as low as 0.11%. The combination of those two things brought the inventory carrying cost piece down 14.1%. The second component, which actually had the biggest drop this year, was the transportation component. And across the board, every mode except for pipeline had a double-digit drop in revenue, which was what we use as the cost measure. And so over total transportation costs declined over 20%.
And were those the largest drops in those categories that you measured?
Those were also the largest drops that we've ever measured. And actually, if you take a look at the long-term trend, inventory carrying cost has been trending down throughout the entire history of the State of Logistics report. I mean, you've got a few blips now and again where it goes up. Where transportation, it hadn't been climbing; it had pretty much been holding steady. And if you look at the trend this year, it's a dramatic drop-off. I do expect that both with the inventory carrying costs and the transportation costs, we're going to see a return back up to the levels we had, but I don't expect to see that till probably 2011. I wouldn't expect to see it at all in 2010, and we're going to have to wait to see what 2011 brings, whether we'll get back up to the levels we were at pre-recession.
And what will be driving that? The economy? The
economy will be driving that. I think one of the things that's going to happen that's going to make that a protracted change in that is everybody's very cautious, scared almost, if you will, to jump in and commit and build up their inventories, and that trickles down through the entire supply chain. I've talked about the trend in several of the recent reports where inventory has been pushed down the chain. Manufacturers and retailers are trying not to get held with that. They're pushing it down on their suppliers. Well, what happened during the recession was instead of suppliers agreeing to be those nimble, we've always got it there, they too were cutting back to reduce their exposure. We cut back, we went into lean inventories, cut into safety stocks, but by the same token, nobody's willing to quickly build back up stocks. Demand's not coming back as fast as it has in previous recessions, so nobody's willing to make that commitment. I think we're going to see stockouts before the end of the year as a result of that.
Do you think these practices by shippers in reducing their inventory stocks will be lasting, or
I don't
Any
think
sense of that?
I don't think at the level that we reduced to during the recession, I don't think that we can sustain that. One of the things that getting our inventory so lean, since we have a global supply chain, we are increasing the risk of our supply chain. When you lengthen the times and you don't have as much safety stock, or you don't have the ability to quickly adjust, you increase your risk. And in the short term, I think we may have more risk built into the system. I think there's a lot of companies that are going to start reevaluating their total landed costs, which may result in some more shifting of near sourcing products, or perhaps finding an additional source to augment and be able to be a little more reactive when there's a disruption in the supply chain.
How would that work? Companies keeping their main sourcing where the cost is lowest, but having an alternate source that is closer and can be supplied more quickly?
And in some cases, it may not be that much more costly. It may not have the capacity of where they've been sourcing. One of the things that's happening with the low-cost Asian sourcing that we've been doing is those economies have done very well, having all of the manufacturing capability and all that, and so their economies have grown, their GDPs have grown, the quality of life has improved there, and we're competing for the goods. The cost of those goods is starting to go up. We've also seen an increase in the cost of shipments in just shipping, and of course with shipping times, particularly ocean carrier lengthening, that's a longer time that you've got to carry that inventory on your books, again increasing your cost. So again, that impacts total landed cost, and that structure that we made the decisions may be shifting.